So what's up guys, Paul Salmon here. Got an item that you may need to add to your R44 checklist, and failure to check this item can lead to an accident. And that's coming up next. Okay guys, service letter number SL92 for the R22, SL81 for the 44, and SL39 for the R66 was issued in 30 June 2021 by Robinson. Looks like this. And what it concerns is the ELT. And that the ELT should be, you should verify that the ELT has both a primary and secondary strap applied to the ELT. And here, background on the service letter, it mentions RHC has received a report of an ELT hook and loop or training strap failure, which allowed the ELT to fall into the drivetrain. Now, they don't mention anything about how much damage was done with that particular event where the ELT came into the drivetrain, but I'm aware of one where the ELT went into the drivetrain and produced basically a significant amount of damage to the aircraft. What happened was, and the pilot ended up having to auto-rotate the aircraft kind of ironically into a cemetery, successfully, thank goodness. So let's talk about what happened. Okay, so the aircraft was being inspected, and I'm not here to place blame as to who did this or whatever. In fact, I'm not even sure who did whatever, but ultimately the ELT was taken out of its rack. Both the primary and secondary straps were released. The ELT was taken out and inspected, looked at for whatever reason, and was placed back into the rack, but both the primary and secondary straps were not secured to the ELT. Subsequently, the pilot came out, flew the aircraft after this inspection, did not note that the primary and secondary straps had not been secured, and ultimately the ELT came out of the rack and got into the drivetrain. I'll show you some pictures here in just a second. You're going to note that the ELT is very difficult to see. Even on a good day, you need to be sure and have a flashlight so that you can look in there and make sure that both the primary and secondary straps on the ELT are in place. But let's take a look at that real quick. All right guys, so here's the upper forward cowl doors open here, and when you're doing your pre-flight inspection, I'll just show you. If you look in there, there's an ELT back there, but boy, that thing is difficult to see. Right? So you got to kind of finagle around to see it, and you can see it in there, and you can see you can see the secondary strap on it, and if you peek down under here, now you can see the hook and loop or Velcro strap that's on the outside of it, and the secondary strap that's also around the ELT. Again, difficult to see. And also kind of brings me to one point that you ought to have a flashlight when you're doing your pre-flight. You know, when people do the pre-flight inspection, it's usually done inside the hangar, especially in the wintertime when it's cold, and they'll be doing it outside. The lighting may not be nearly as good, and having a flashlight, sometimes in the bright sunlight, you're almost blinded by the sun. So having a flashlight is a definite plus. But anyway, you can see how difficult the ELT is to see back there. So the ELT is not on your pre-flight checklist too, by the way. If you look at the checklist, I guess, I don't know, Robinson might consider putting it on there and just put if applicable, or check ELT straps and secondary strap if applicable. But anyway, very difficult to see back there. Okay guys, so let's take a specific look at the exact damage that was caused to this aircraft. Okay, in the first photo, you're going to notice all the remnants and pieces of what's left of the ELT that's sitting up on the deck there. When you open that cowl door, you can see that the ELT was basically smashed into several different pieces here. So in the second photo here, you're going to notice a couple things. Number one, there's a big chunk of the ELT that's back behind the hydraulics reservoir. And then also that the hydraulics line was sheared off, and that caused the pilot to have an immediate loss of hydraulics. So he got to auto-rotate the aircraft having no hydraulics, which is a bit more of a challenge than when you do have hydraulics. So this next photo shows the pilot with a tug pulling the aircraft through the cemetery back over to the airport, which was a very short distance away. Actually, when this thing happened, he actually called me right away and told me what had happened. And I told him, I said, you know, you auto-rotated into a cemetery. If it would have ended very badly, they could have just dug a hole and rolled you over into the hole. Save a lot of money on funeral costs and transportation costs. And he didn't see the humor in that at all. Okay, so if your aircraft has an ELT, you probably ought to add, you know, checking the ELT, making sure the two straps are in place as part of your pre-flight checklist, all right? And again, Robinson probably ought to add that, you know, ELT, check the straps if applicable, if equipped or whatever, to the pre-flight checklist. Okay guys, so if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next video.